first time that I saw you, I said, for goodness sake, that man's got the power. He's a charmer with a snake. I was thrilled and fascinated, but somehow liberated when you took me to the place I'd never been. You showed me lots of things I'd never seen. You set me free as if you'd taken me halfway up the Hindu Kush. And I love you for showing me the view from halfway up the Hindu Kush. The next time that I saw you,
we're talking to Candy Royalle. She's telling us about her production as part of Sydney Fringe 2012, Stories by Starlight, which has got one more performance left. She's actually, of this year, the Nimbin Poetry World Nimbin Poetry winner for 2012 as well. And you're going to be performing a piece that you actually won the competition with.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it leading into
Sure. Well, it's called Memories, and it basically traces my family history and how I came to be here, I suppose, and just follows 3 generations, so my grandfather, my father, and myself. And it's a pretty epic piece, but people really respond to it. I think that nearly everyone can connect with it on some level, and yeah, it was a really proud moment to have won, you know, what is the greatest competition in Australia for performance poetry, telling my family's story.
Now, I know when you performed this on the opening night of Stories by Starlight, your father was in the audience.
He was. It was the first time that he'd heard it. I was really nervous to do it for him before I was competing with it. But the competition, winning the competition was some sort of validation, I suppose, that the story had to be told and that it was and that it was an important story. And then I decided that it's not even part of the show, but I decided that as my dad and my mum were going to be there, that I wanted to give it to him as a gift. And he responded really well. I mean, he cried, and it was a really touching moment, and everyone in the room felt it, and everyone that spoke to me said that for them it was a really beautiful journey, and knowing that my father was there as a witness to that story intensified the experience, and it certainly did for me. I mean, I couldn't see him because the lights were so bright in my face, but I could feel him, if that makes sense. And at the end of the piece, I saw him stand up and give me a standing ovation, which was really beautiful, considering it's our story.
Candy Royalle is the artist I'm speaking to, performance poet, spoken word artist, exploring her stories and Stories by Starlight. He is part of Sydney Fringe 2012, and you're going to be performing a piece, just the piece that you've been telling us about.
Yes. I am my grandfather's memories of sunshine streaming through olive trees, of women sitting around and clucking like hens whilst they crush garlic with spices to make that night's meal. Their men tend gardens, plough the fields of their Baladi, their homeland. I am my grandfather's memories, remembering that he was raised as a Christian in a land of Muslims with Jewish friends. He played in the dirt with his future enemies, shared meals, and didn't yet know that history was in the making somewhere in Europe. I am my grandfather's memories and the things he doesn't even know yet, like he was one of millions of pawns, negotiated in a deal that would alleviate the guilt of the world for crimes committed that they had no hand in. There was no hatred, yet. I am my grandfather's nightmares, stories that came, horrors that caressed the ears of him, his parents, others in their community. It whispered that death was wiping out whole villages, that blood was being shed, so much that rivers ran upon the earth, turning it crimson. Violence was making the arid, land once fertile, wasted. I am my grandfather's nightmares, where he wished to be deaf to the stories of the Nakba, where to stay was to die, where to leave was to die. Death comes in many forms, and when your feet can no longer touch the ground you took your first steps upon, that's a form of death too. I am my grandfather's nightmares of the stories coming closer, of terror being sowed whilst the peasants plowed the land. He thought of the danger his aging parents were in. He thought of his own life ahead of him. He'd seen his people torn from the earth, no more roots. They wandered out dazed, confused, crying for their losses, mourning the dead, asking Allah what they did to deserve this. He'd seen whole villages razed to the ground, and he knew that a knock on the door was imminent, that the violence ravaging his land would not stop. In fact, it intensified daily, and so, knowing under occupation is no place to live, he left one day, saying goodbye to his parents. He swore he would send for them once he had found somewhere safe. I am my grandfather's memories, as he stepped out that door one last time, held his hand up to shield his eyes, breathed in slow through his nostrils, and forced himself to remember every smell. He opened his eyes wide, allowed them to sting, and looked upon his village one last time. Then he closed his eyes and committed to memory all those memories before 1948, so that he would leave in love and not hate. Opening his eyes, I am his memory of walking away, of the crunch of dirt beneath his feet, of the earth's conversations with him, how the wind wished him well through the trees, and he responded with his heart, knowing he could never return. He swore to his homeland it would reside forever inside. I am my grandfather's memories as he immigrated to Lebanon to try to start again, how he worked long hours as a refugee in a foreign land, trying to gather the money required to save his parents from the death which was beckoning. I am my grandfather's memories as he managed to bring his parents over, then start his own family, getting married, having children, tragically losing a wife, getting married again, having more children, and trying to provide for them. I am my father's memories of being born into a displaced family, where the homeland is referred to constantly, where he had this sense that he belonged elsewhere, where the injustice was keenly felt, where the world seemed not to care nor understand the plight of his people. I have my father's memories of a family striving to survive, always on the outside, and he as a child growing in another war-torn country, but knowing that he would leave before the army could get to him. I have my father's memories of being kidnapped twice, and twice being set free, for he did not subscribe to any form of religious extremism. I am my father's memories of constant warfare, being shot by rubber bullets, choking on tear gas, listening to missiles soar overhead, and hoping against all hope that their bullet-riddled apartment block would not be hit next. I am my father's memories of being 18 and knowing if he did not leave, then he'd have to bear a weapon, and the death that comes with it, either behind it or in front of it. So he left that land, knowing he could never return. He became a deserter of a war he did not agree with. As his plane ascended toward the heavens, I am his memories of hope for a better future, and sadness that he may never see those whom he loves again. I am my father's memories of picking grapes in France, trying to get enough money to get further away. I am my father's memories of boarding a plane for Australia, where he knew my mother to be, and tearing up his passport, arriving as a refugee. I am my own memory of being 8 or 9 years old and listening to the voice of my grandfather on a tape he sent us from a land I can barely imagine, but whose food I eat, whose music I hear, whose history I am already learning. I am my own memory of being 10 or 11 years old and seeing my dad cry for the first time. My father knew his father was dying but couldn't return. He didn't get to say goodbye to his Baba on his deathbed. That's when I became my grandfather's memories. You see, he could no longer remember. now that he had been buried. I am my own memory of being a teenager and struggling to exist between two cultures, one which sought me to hang on to a past and one which forced me into the future, one which sought to fill me with love and one which forced me to belong to this land. I am my own memory of trying to understand why my father was always so angry, until I was old enough to see that where once my father had been a warrior, he was now nothing more than a warrior, and I mistook that fear of losing his land, his family, everything I took for granted, for anger. I am my family's blood, where these memories, these histories course through my veins, where my own feet have not yet touched the soil of where my great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my father's footsteps roamed. I am the memories of the displaced, the lost, the hidden, the lies, the propaganda, the hatred. I am the memories of blue sky, dry heat, hummus, tabbouleh, tabla. I am the memories of that lost land. And this land gained. Woo!
Ladies and gentlemen, Candy Royalle, thank you for being here on the special broadcast of Talking Through Your Arts. And Stories by Starlight has one performance left.
Yes, the 20th of September, which is a Thursday night. It'll be our closing show, so it's going to be massive. You can get your tickets obviously through the Sydney Fringe website, and yeah, come along. It's going to be amazing.
With that love.
Yeah.
Candy Royalle, fantastic.
Excellent.
Yay.
Whoa, whoa.